Well, not being 6'7", I think the podium would be a barrier of communication. What I'm going to talk about today with you are ideas that have taken shape over many, many, many decades of living with Indian paintings. I have attempted to give it some form in the title, which is Stories Within Stories. And my basic issue has been, I will have to consult notes. These paintings are in many ways enigmatic. And let us sort of try to take a look at them and see how we can glean some information from them. I don't know how this works. Well, my basic point is that they have such incredibly refined line and color. You look at them, and you're not going to look at 4 of them at a time. You'll have one in front of you. And they just capture your eyes. And the process of thinking takes a while to emerge. Because a work of art that does not provoke thought is not very successful, in my opinion. Now, these questions that will shape in your mind will be of various sorts. The most obvious one, especially for modern viewers of pictures made some time back, is, what is this about? We have some notions, if you're Indian, of the stories that underline them. But if you're not Indian, you're totally lost. They're beautiful daubs of color, splendid and lovely. Well, many other questions come. Where was it made? When was it made? For whom was it made? Now, you would think that these questions should be pretty reasonable to answer. Unfortunately, they're not, because hardly any of these pictures are inscribed. Okay? So, the questions, the answers are found, but it takes a tremendous amount of work. But there is a different direction that I want to take us. Questions about who was the artist? Why did that artist conceive the picture the way it is? Or did the artist conceive it? Those questions are even harder because, again, there's no name on most of these pictures of the artist. Okay, it's sort of like if you go to Europe and you look at Byzantine pictures, you're not going to find the name of an artist. It's somewhat like that. But what I have found even more disturbing is when others have written about these paintings, these pictures, and about the artists, they talk in laconic terms. Karigar, craftsman, chitrakar, a maker of an image. Both those words are about the ability to execute something. What about the creative dimension, the inventiveness, the intellectual dimension? That, sadly, is not discussed. In fact, in the case of paintings on religious themes, the assumption is made that some scholarly or priestly person was guiding the artist on what to depict. That certainly did happen, but it's not the whole story. If the painting is about a historical topic, then some director of the project was put in charge of providing that kind of input. All that happened in the Mughal court. But I will today examine 3 pictures with you. We could look at many more, but time is always not adequate in these events. And by looking hard at these pictures, what you will discover, I hope we will share that discovery, is that the artists were incredibly active in conceptualizing and inventing the pictures and what is in them. And that shows up in the stories within stories. So without talking a heck of a lot more, let me just get to the first of these pictures. Okay. Nothing extremely surprising. It's a painting, 2 men, one facing the other. Most of you in the audience will recognize that the man on the right is the 3rd Mughal emperor, Akbar. And the man on the left is his son and successor, Jahangir. Well, and he seems to be, the son seems to be saluting his father. The father is certainly old. He's not a young, vibrant man. Okay, so what's so surprising about this? Not a whole lot at that surface level. That's what I mean by the story, the first story. But actually, as you keep looking, and as I and many scholars have done with this painting, which is by a very famous Mughal artist, Manohar, if you examine this detail, isn't that an unusual thing Jahangir is doing with his hand? It's not it's sort of a clumsy way of saluting somebody. And it concerned me. What is he doing there? Well, actually, if you go and dig into Abul Fazl, who was Akbar's minister and a scholarly member of his court, trusted member, he tells a story that when Akbar was a young lad, his father Humayun presented him with a golden crown. And the little boy, of course, was thrilled, and he wanted to put it on his head, bow to his father to thank him. Unfortunately, he was worried that the crown being too big would fall on the ground. So he put his hand up like that to hold the crown. Humayun was really impressed that this was an act of humility by his son. And he, in fact, told everybody that this particular form of saluting has a name among the Mongols and the Timurids called Koronush. Notice how quickly I've enticed you into another story. A story within a story. And the Koronush, and I have to read this, is placing the palm of the hand on the head, taking your mind in the hand of supplication and offering it to the monarch, ready to take orders. Akbar was impressed and later formalized this form of salute. So, there's much more to this picture than a simple act of paying respects to his father. In fact, there is even more. The relationship of Akbar and Jahangir was not exactly a comfortable one. In 1594, when Akbar fell ill, the classical Mongol business of succession, pushing the father aside even and taking over the throne, came into play, and Jahangir, in fact, set up a court in Allahabad and whatnot, and the artist of this painting actually went to work for Jahangir. And so things were frosty between them. So what the heck? Why would Jahangir have a painting made of himself in a state of abnegation to his father? Well, scholars sort of went back and forth, and very learned, important scholar of Indian paintings in the Mughal period, in any case said, well, as Jahangir got older, there was a change of heart and his memory of his father softened and whatnot. Never convinced me. And let me tell you what really is the story within this story. And I've, by the way, described this in 2021 in a lecture that we did during the middle of COVID with Naman Ahuja and myself. What happened was that during his reign, Jahangir went to Ajmer, to the Dargah of the Nawaz Sharif there, the Chishti shrine, and stayed there for a number of days. And while he was there, he fell ill. And we think, oh, so what? You get sick, you get a cold and you get better. Among the Mughals, if the king fell ill, all heck broke loose because the whole business of succession kicked in, as happened later with Shah Jahan and this and that. Okay? So this was a very big deal. Fortunately, Jahangir recovered, and he ascribed it to the intervention of the Khwaja. And so he decided he would become his follower. And as a symbol of following him, he would have his ears pierced and would wear pearl earrings like the rest of the followers of the Khwaja. And if you see the painting, you notice he's wearing pearl earrings. Now, this happened in 1614. So this painting was made after 1614, by which time Akbar is dead for 9 years. So there's no way that Jahangir could be saluting Akbar. So what happened? Well, another dream. Oops. He dreamt that Akbar came to him in a dream and asked him to release Aziz Kokha, who was Akbar's milk brother, his foster brother, whom Jahangir had imprisoned because, in the succession, Aziz Kokha did not accept or come and offer his obeisance or some such complication in these court things. And this is a painting of the dream. And in the dream, Jahangir agrees. So what have I done? I've kind of taken you on a bit of a journey. Stories within stories. So this painting remained an enigma until all this unraveling had to be done. And frankly, it was in 2021 that we finally got it clear. Okay? My point is, Manohar, who was extremely fond of Akbar and one of the top artists for Jahangir, he certainly was conceptualizing this. He certainly was building intellectual material into the design of the painting. So please, he's no karigar. He's brilliant at the work, but not just a karigar. He's not just a chitrakar. It's time to think of these people the way we think of Da Vinci, Michelangelo, and others. They were no less. Let me take you into another, even more mysterious painting. Okay, let's see if anybody in the audience knows what it is. Keep it to yourself because we don't want to confuse everybody else, but think about it. When I first saw this painting, it was such a riot of energy. It's absolutely unique. There's nothing like it. All these glorious red rocks with pairs of animals romping all over. Herds of elephants at the bottom. It's just phenomenal. It's one of the greatest paintings made at this particular court. But years went by. All we could figure out quickly was that this mysterious painting, oh boy, has one easily identified thing in the middle. A prince has ridden up on his horse, gotten off, and he is kneeling in front of a holy man. And presumably some lesson is being conveyed to the prince. Now, first of all, who is this prince? That we do know. He is from the state of Bundi. He's one of the Hada princes. He's Rao Raja Ajit Singh Hada of Bundi, who ruled from 1770 onwards. So with that, the first set of questions, where was this made, for whom was it made, all those get answered. But the first question of what is it about doesn't. So let me take you on a journey of discovery. If you look at the horizon, and this is where the first clues show up, you see two feline animals there. A tiger-like one on the left, and a winged snow leopard on the right. Now, I'm sure many of you have figured out why they are there. They are Mahadevi's mounts, the great goddess, Mahadevi. Well, if the artist has gone to all the trouble of making a picture with symbols of Mahadevi, why isn't she there? And that puzzled a few of us. The late scholar B.N. Goswami and I, we went back and forth, and he visited us, he looked at it, and we couldn't figure it out. We knew that was something to do with the great goddess. Well, it took me quite a bit, and I'll tell you, in May of this year, we cracked the puzzle. So there is a story within the story within the story. And that is this. If you go to the Devi Gita, which is a bunch of chapters in the middle of the Devi Bhagavad Puran, these are fundamental texts of Shakt belief systems of fundamental importance. And I think the mother goddess aspect, the female divinity in India, is absolutely crucial to understand. You find this wonderful quote. The universe is considered to be created, pervaded, and protected by a supremely powerful, all-knowing and wholly compassionate divine female. She is the mother of the world. Jagat Ambika, Jagan Matrika. And then, more importantly, she is identified with Prakriti, which is the physical world, identified with it, not separate. And Maya, and then one with the creatures and her creation. So there's no need to depict her visually. By painting her creation, she has been depicted. Now, this is not the work of a karigar. This is a deep thinker who's connected something from a rather obscure text. Not all of us read the Devi Gita or the Devi Bhagavad Puran, with creating a picture, and a remarkably exciting picture. I'll take you to something simple. Many of you will recognize, well, this is a much earlier painting from the 16th century, from Bundelkhand, which is in central India. In fact, we can say exactly from where, Orcha, which is a city on that wonderful river, one of the most beautiful places in India. Unfortunately, not visited as much as it should be by people. And the scene, any Indian will say, it is Lord Ram, because he's holding a bow and arrow, and his body is blue. It's Vishnu with a bow and arrow. And behind him are his three brothers. Bharat, shown dark-skinned, the other two fairer. But then you have to start looking deeper into the story. He has been crowned. He's the king now, because the parasol of kingship is held above his head. Okay, so we start deciphering pieces of stories that are embedded there. There's Sita seated on the left. All of us know the sadness that's going to come for her. And it is one of the themes that, I'm a Sikh, by the way, by birth. And among the Sikhs, this used to be the topic that people say, my God, why was she treated so badly? Okay? Because there was a sense of fairness that Guru Nanak promulgated, that men and women, how you treat them, etc., equality and whatnot. And then you have this rather incongruent story at the heart of the story of the righteous King, Lord God. But let me not get deeper into that. The occasion. The occasion is when Lord Ram, having flown back in the Pushpak to Ayodhya, he's been crowned, says to the leaders of the Vanar armies who have been his allies, Jambavan and the dark black-skinned guy, behind him, Sugriv, and the other princes of the monkey army, the Vanars as I like to call them. He says, friends, it's time for you to go home. So it's a painting of joy of victory and sadness of parting. And now you can say it's very simple, but it's a brilliant work of art by a very brilliant designer and artist, because I'm going to show you a little detail, another story embedded there. Who is that little figure seated at the feet of Lord Ram? And why is this made such a feature here? Well, you remember the story of Angad, Bali's son. Lord Ram slayed Bali to help Sugriv become king. And I'll have to read this. My friend, scholar Philip Lutgendorf, was kind enough to send me the translation of the relevant portion of the Ramcharitmanas so I could include it in my manuscript. Give me a second. It is a very touching story. Angad's plea to Lord Ram was from Tulsi's Ramcharitmanas. In a deeply touching verse, Angad pleads as a child would to stay with Ram. Then Angad rose, bowed his head, and with tear-filled eyes, joined palms, in utter humility spoke words that seemed steeped in love's essence. Hear me, omniscient one, ocean of joy and mercy, friend of the wretched and brother to the afflicted. At the time of death, Master, Bali left me in your care. Do not forsake me, benefactor of devotees. He fell at Ram's feet, begging him, save me, Lord, don't tell me now, Master, to go home. Touched by this plea, Ram lifted Angad up and held him to his heart as tears welled up in his eyes. God weeps, to follow the notion. So this is not a simple painting. Okay? And the artist has penetrated the depth of the issues. Lovely eyes. Taking a garland, upper garment, and jewels from his own breast, he adorned Bali's son, bid him farewell, uttering many words of consolation. So I hope I have conveyed to you that these artists are not karigars, they're not chitrakars. They think, they invent, they create, and they use all kinds of artifice of storytelling, etc., embedding all those in their compositions. But luckily, there's one artist who actually says what he thinks of himself in his own words. This is a rare instance in Indian art. So let me take us there. It's a rather attractive painting of a Saluki dog. On the back, it's very widely known now, and Elvira and I have constantly gotten offers to buy it, and the numbers keep getting bigger and bigger. But it's the back of the painting that provides the fodder for our conversation today. The inscription there reads, Mas doe long kino kam. I did this in 2 months. It's information you never find about a painting anywhere. Okay? But the next sentence just kills you. Likhyon chitra kavi swarup ram. This picture was made by the poet Swarup Ram. He doesn't see himself as a chitrakar, although he uses the word chitra. He sees himself as a poet. And in fact, this is a notion that is being recognized more. Philip Lutgendorf, for instance, and Kavita Singh writing about the Golden Ramayan for a recent exhibition, have recognized that the pictorial representation is not just making pictures, it is yet another tika of the Ramayana. Does everybody know the word tika? You know, a commentary. So, Tulsi, and then some other scholar will come along and will write their commentary, which is sort of a different version in a vernacular language. The paintings are a form of vernacular. How could a karigar who did not have the notions, intellectual notions, the creative notions, do something like create a tika? And so my attempt today has been through only 3 pictures, and I could show you about 50 more, where the same theme occurs. And the question that I want to end with is, how come people have been stuck with that Karigar and Chitrakar thing? I think something I'll have to write about more amply later. It goes back to British times. They could not see these people as intellectuals. They're just picture makers. And in fact, they also called Indian paintings miniature painting, which is a pejorative, diminutive adjective. There's nothing miniature about a painting which is 50 centimeters by 30 centimeters. But that's what they called them. And I'm afraid many scholars in India slavishly just kept using the word. So, thank you.